Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Sodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivanadari. Sodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Srimad Paramahansa Prabhupada Austerity Shishimad. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Gaura Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Maya Purnav Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Sangdeva Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Holy Name Sankirtan Ki Jai, Go Premanandi. All glory some devotees, all glory some devotees, all glory some devotees, all glory, Shishi Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, text number 12. Apano Vyavaharo Tra Chitram Andho Bahudanam Pitrahur Dakshinaha Karna Uttaro Devahu Smritaha Apano Vyavaharotra Chitram Andho Bahudanam Pitrahur Dakshina Karna Uttaro Devahu Smritaha Apano Vyavaharotra Chitram Andho Bahudanam Pitrahur Dakshina Karna Uttaro Devahu Smritaha Apano Vyavaharotra Chitram Andho Bahudanam Pitrahur Dakshina Karna Uttaro Devahu Smritaha. Pitrahur Dakshina Karna Uttaro Devahu Smritaha Apano Vyavaharotra Chitram Andho Pitrahur Dakshina Karna Uttaro Devahu Smritaha. Apana, named Apana. Vyavahara, business of the tongue. Atra, here. Chitram, of all varieties. Andha, eatables. Bahudanam, named Bahudana. Pitrahu, named Pitrahu. Dakshinaha, rights. Karna, here. Uttara, left. Devahu, Devahu. Smritaha is called. The city called Apana represents engagement of the tongue in speech, and Bahudana is the variety of foodstuffs. The right ear is called the gate of Prithu, and the left ear is called the gate of Devahu. There's no purport, we'll go to the next verse. Pravatam cha nivritam cha shastram panchala sangitam pitryanam devayanam shotrat chuta daradvajet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki. Narada Muni continued, the city is spoken of as Dakshina Panchala represents the scriptures meant for directing pravritti, the process of sense enjoyment and fruitive activities. The other city, named Uttara Panchala, represents the scriptures meant for decreasing fruitive activities and increasing knowledge, which is also called nivritti. The living entity receives different kinds of knowledge by means of two ears, and some living entities are promoted to Prithuloka and some to Devaloka. All this is made possible by the 2 ears. Purport. The Vedas are known as Shruti, and the knowledge received from them through oral reception is called Shrutidhar. In the past, there was people that had such incredible memories. They're called Shrutidhar, and they could hear it once and they wouldn't forget. And then as Kali Yuga came in, our memories became weaker and weaker, and then we need books so that we can remember. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, one can be promoted to the planets of the demigods, or to the planets of the Pitas, forefathers, or even to the Vaikuntha planets, simply through the process of hearing. These things have already been explained in previous chapters. Om Jnanasamadandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshram Militam Dina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Mukum Kotavachalang Pangunlang Hayategarim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Vanchakapatubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvdevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaisnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. In this first verse we recited, it's mentioned about the activities of the tongue. The tongue has 2 functions: speaking and tasting. And in the nectar of instruction it stated, Vacho Vegam Manasakroda Vegam Jiva Vegam Urdhatasta Vegam. That one who is able to control the urge to speak, the mind's demands, anger, the tongue, belly, and genitals, such a person is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So the tongue is actually very important. We can speak about Krishna, or we could speak about all kinds of nonsense in this material world. So it's mentioned that the austerity of the tongue, one of the austerities of the tongue, is to always repeat the Vedic literatures. Anudvayam krang vakyam satyam priyam hitangchet sovyam yasanam vanmayam tapushate. That to speak that which is not agitating to others, that's the first austerity. It's like sometimes on book distribution, devotees will be distributing books and someone says something nasty to them, and they say something nasty back to them. But not so good. We have to be tolerant. So this is one of the benefits of book distribution, is that we learn to be tolerant. Because the people out there, they're in the modes of nature, and they come off and do crazy things and say crazy things, and we just have to be tolerant. So it's a way to work out our tolerance. Just like people, they go to gyms and they work out and they get their leg muscles going and their arm muscles, and so we go on book distribution, we work out with our tolerance and our compassion and try to become strong in these things which are very important. So Prabhupada, he said that anger actually has 3 outlets, actually 4. Who knows what the 4 outlets are? First, the hand. That's the most. Someone says something, they punch. People are very violent. You get someone angry, and they become violent. They kick. One devotee was on book distribution, and some Indian man, he said something blasphemous, so the devotee kicked him in the airport. And someone saw that, And he told the person that was kicked, I saw it, I'm a witness, here's my information, contact me, you take this to court, we'll put this, we'll get this guy. And it went to court, the whole thing. Amarenda had to, he had to deal with it. So yeah, the feet, sometimes people kick the wall, they're angry, just kick a wall, Instead of kicking somebody, kick a wall, somebody put a hole in the wall, And then the eyes. There was one devotee, he said that he saw another devotee, and this devotee that saw him, he wasn't very happy, he was looking at him. And this devotee told me, if sight can kill someone, he would have killed me. Sight, also, just the eyes. Yeah. So, hands, feet, eyes, and tongue. Yeah, and the tongue. People get angry and say all kinds of heavy things. Yeah? And sometimes it's so heavy that they're killed. If they say something, if they go off too far off, saying something that's offensive, they get killed. Yeah. So it's very important to control the tongue, control the anger. One is able to control the urge to speak, the mind's demands. The mind is demanding so many things. Right? We're so fortunate that we have so many Krishna conscious things that we can do, that we can think of, that helps us towards Krishna. Yeah. So we have to engage the mind in thinking of Krishna. Yeah. Somehow engage the mind in thinking of Krishna. And I was just thinking that so many people have come to our Krishna conscious society, and so many people have left. Prabhupada actually said 90% of his disciples, they'll leave. And even when he was here, so many left. Yeah. So why? The mind. The mind. It's very powerful. And to make it a devotee, now it's, as Prabhupada said, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's mind is a non-devotee. So we're trying to turn the mind into a devotee, and the mind is very powerful. As we heard Arjuna say, Chanchalam hi Maraka, is flickering, very powerful, determined. To control is more difficult to control than the wind. Like we had this storm yesterday. It's like the windstorm. It's amazing. I went on a walk this morning, and so many things were knocked over because of this wind. I think a few months ago, the big sign was knocked over across the street because of the wind. The wind is very powerful. But the mind is even more powerful. But what's more powerful than the mind? Krishna. So we got to take shelter of Krishna. And Krishna will help us to control the mind and get purified. Engage the mind in thinking of Krishna and speaking of Krishna. The more we speak about Krishna, the more the mind gets purified. The more we think of Krishna, the more the mind gets purified. It's a natural thing in this world that people have problems. Yeah. So devotees would go to Prabhupada with problems, but they would get in there just to be in Prabhupada's presence, and Prabhupada would preach. He would speak about Krishna, and Prabhupada's so pure that just by being in the presence of Prabhupada, hearing Srila Prabhupada, all their problems would just go away. And they would leave the room feeling just blissful. This is the power of the pure devotee. Just hearing the pure devotee, one gets purified, and problems go far away. So this material world, it's a place of problems. I just read this morning, Prabhupada said that the material world, it's like a big block of wood. And we just have to carve Krishna out of this big block of wood. Just find Krishna. He wrote that to one lady devotee, Krishna Dasi. So we just have to carve Krishna out of this gross material nature, this wood. Just an example. So yeah, somehow we have to find Krishna. Actually, we're fortunate we have. Yeah. But we have to stick with Krishna, despite all the preaching of the mind. Yeah. We got to stick with Krishna. Saying, let's see here. This is the nature of the tongue, is to speak and to taste. Now here it's mentioned in this first verse that we spoke. The right ear is called the gate of Prithu, and the left ear is called the gate of Devahu. So the ear is so important, because from hearing comes understanding. Yeah. From hearing comes remembrance of Krishna. And in the Gita, Krishna says, Maya Shakta Mana Partha Yogam Yunjam Manashvaya. He says, just hear how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, you'll know me in full, free from doubt. So hearing is so important. We get free, we become free of doubts. Doubts are like demons. As Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita, these doubts are like demons. Please slash these doubts. Yeah. So by hearing about Krishna from the pure devotee, hearing about Krishna from Krishna, then we get purified. And we become free of doubt. Just hear how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, you'll know me in full. Of course, to know Krishna in full is not possible. Prabhupada recently, I heard Prabhupada said, even Krishna doesn't know himself in full, because Krishna is always expanding. So we can't know Krishna in full, but we could know Krishna at least enough so that we can surrender to him. At least we could know Krishna's greatness enough so that we can surrender to him. So this hearing is a big part of surrender. Hearing attentively. Just like there's the offenses to chanting the holy name, there's also the offenses to hearing. Sometimes we hear inattentively. I mean, I've had the experience. I'm reading a page, and I read a whole page, and nothing sunk in. I'm thinking of something else. The mind is very tricky. You're trying to read and hear about Krishna, but the mind is thinking something way off. Anybody have that experience? You're reading and you read a whole page and nothing. So what do? Just like Bhakti Swami, he would back up on his beat. So we go back and read it again. All right, let me try to understand what Prabhupada's saying here, what Krishna's saying here. So we read it again. Yeah. So we have to hear attentively. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Masyita sarva durgani mat prasada tarishasi attachva tang ahankaram dashoshasi vanangshasi. Masyita sarva durgani. That there's many obstacles on this path of devotional service. But Krishna, if we surrender to him, he removes these obstacles. And if we hear attentively, then Krishna he removes these obstacles. But if we don't hear attentively, he says that then we become lost. We become lost. in the material world again. Now we've somehow or another, by Krishna's mercy, we found our home. We found the goal of life, pure devotional service. But if we don't hear attentively, with sincere endeavor to surrender to Krishna, then again we can become lost. So hearing is so important. And by this hearing and rendering service to Krishna, then eventually we're able to engage in pure devotional service. And as it's mentioned in the second verse that we chanted today, that by this pure devotional service, we go back to Vaikuntha. We can either go to Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan. They're the same, but they're different. They're both the spiritual world. But in Goloka Vrindavan, there's no awe and reverence. In Vaikuntha, there's so much awe and reverence, but in Goloka Vrindavan, they have these very intimate relations with Krishna, where they don't know that Krishna's God, and they play with Krishna and do so many things with Krishna. So the goal is to become so pure that we're able to go back to Krishna. Of course, now we're imperfect. We're trying to become perfect. It's possible. We're impure now, but we're trying to become pure by this process. And we hope against hope that it's possible that we can do it. But we have a lot of advantages. Sometimes when I'm distributing books, and people ask, so what's in it for me if I follow this? It's a station called WIIFM. What's in it for me? What will I get out of this? Yeah, people want to know. If I take this book, I read it, what am I going to get out of it? Yeah. So I tell them, well, you're going to get peace. You're going to get a lot of knowledge. You'll get a lot of wisdom. And if you really take it to heart, you can go back to the spiritual world. This is our home. The spiritual world. This place here, this is not our real home. This is a reflection of our real home. So sometimes they take, sometimes they don't. But this is the goal, to become so pure. And Prabhupada gives the example, just like a magnet is attracted to iron, naturally attracted to iron. So we're also naturally attracted to Krishna. But because we have these material desires, that natural attraction isn't there. Just like if some rust gets on the iron, then the natural attraction to the magnet isn't there anymore. So we have this rusty lust, these material desires that are keeping us from being attracted to Krishna. And so what we're doing when we're engaging in devotional service is we're scraping off this lust and getting closer to Krishna. So in the Nectar of Devotion, it's explained what we get out of this, what we get out of engaging in pure devotional service. There's 6 characteristics of pure devotional service, and one of them, the first one I'm going to say, is that we experience pleasure. Krishna is the reservoir of pleasure, and if we connect to Krishna, we experience this pleasure of devotional service. And it's mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion that the pleasure of devotional service, just one drop of pleasure from pure devotional service, is more than oceans of the pleasure of material enjoyment and the pleasure of Brahman. And he says actually that this nectar devotion is just a drop. It's just a drop out of the ocean of the nectar devotion. So this gives you an idea, an understanding of how great this ocean is. The nectar of devotion is so sweet. Have you read it yet? It's so nice. Pastimes of Krishna are so nice. And this is just a drop, just to give you an idea of so much nectar to look forward to. So there's a great deal of pleasure in devotional service. Otherwise, how could devotees give up so much material pleasure and serve Krishna, engage in devotional service? There must be some pleasure there. Yeah. It's rarely achieved. So why is pure devotional service rarely achieved? Because Krishna is captured. He's captured, and not only captured, but he's controlled by devotees that are engaged in pure devotional service. So it's very rare. Manushanam sahasresu kashyadhyarajasita. Out of many thousands of men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So it's very rare for someone to engage in pure devotional service. Just like we're trying to engage in pure devotional service. Anybody here engaged in pure devotional service? Yeah, it's very difficult. Very difficult. But if it was easy, then we would give it up easily. But if you try to achieve something, someone's trying to achieve something that's very difficult to achieve, and he finally achieves it, he'll never give it up. So we're trying to achieve the greatest thing, most difficult thing. We'll never give it up. Once we achieve it, we'll never give it up. It's all auspicious. Pure devotional service is all auspicious. And what is auspicious in the nectar of devotion? They explain that auspiciousness means welfare activities for all the people of the world. This is auspicious. And of course, we're giving books out all over the world. Now the books are going out in China, and they're going into these eastern countries, also Saudi Arabia and Iraq, and So this is what is real auspiciousness, is giving Krishna to people throughout the world so they can hear about Krishna. Very auspicious. And then it's the there's a few left. Yeah, it frees one from all distress. In the Nectar Devotion, it's explained that distress means to act sinfully and to think sinfully. This causes distress. To think in a sinful way, to think of sinful activities, this causes distress. And to, of course, to engage in sinful activity, this causes more distress. There's so much distress in the material world because of so much sinful activity. It's like people are committing suicide, people are alcoholics and drug addicts. And have you heard of cutters? Cutters. Yeah, I'm 20 years ago. I never saw them. Now you see them much more, especially in colleges. Yeah, people they're suffering so much, so they cut themselves. You see it in college, also high school. Yeah, just it helps them feel better, actually, because they're suffering so much internally. They cut themselves.
Could you try again?
Shh. So they cut themselves.
I didn't get that.
Uh-oh. What do we do here? I don't know how that happened. So, yeah, people are suffering so much. So, this is a way to become free of suffering, is to get this higher taste. Visyavani vartante naraharasinde rasavarjam rasobhyas param disa navartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from the sense objects or from sense gratification, although taste for the sense objects still remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing the higher taste, he's fixed. So we're trying to get this higher taste, and we're not attracted again to these lower taste. Yeah? So, yeah, this material world, it's a place of distress. Yeah? Dukkhalayam asasatam, it's a place of suffering. And sometimes people say, "Oh, you Hare Krishnas, you're escapist." Of course we're escapists. Yeah. You see, when someone's in a fire, then he tries to escape. So this material world is the blazing fire. It's a blazing fire of material existence. Yeah. And we're trying to escape. That's right. And we're trying to help as many people as possible to also escape from this misery. So I think the last one is beyond the conception of liberation. Right? No, I said rare. It's all attractive. Oh yeah, all attractive. Krishna is the most attractive. But Krishna is attracted to devotional service. So it's described that devotional service is even more powerful than Krishna, because he is conquered by devotional service. And who offers the best service? To Krishna, Srimati Radharani. And therefore, if you go to Vrindavan, even to this day, instead of people saying, "Oh, hello, hi, Jai Radhe," Jai Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shyam. So Radharani, actually it's described that pure devotional service is under control of Radharani. We can't attain pure devotional service without getting the mercy of Srimati Radharani. So we pray to Krishna also to get the mercy of Srimati Radharani. Yeah. There's but beyond the conception of liberation. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's described that liberation is waiting at the doorstep, right? Ready to offer service. Yeah. So what is a devotee interested in? We're not interested in liberation. We're interested in service to Krishna. This is what a devotee wants. Just wants to serve Krishna. And by serving Krishna, then all perfection is achieved. Yeah. Not interested in this liberation. This doesn't give the pleasure of the soul. The pleasure of the soul is achieved by engaging in pure devotional service to Krishna. Nothing else will satisfy the soul. So by engaging in this devotional service, by engaging in service to Krishna, we go back home, back to pure devotional service. You don't have to go back to the spiritual world to achieve this highest pleasure. Iha yasya harer dashe karmana manasagira nikila sapiyasvasu jivan mukti suchite. Anybody who engages their mind, their body, and their words in their service of Krishna is liberated even in this very lifetime. We don't have to go back to another planet. Even right here on this planet, we can experience this pleasure that the soul is searching for by engaging in pure devotional service. So this means pure devotional service means uninterrupted, unmotivated. So Krishna's asking for a lot. He's asking for a lot. And he gives a lot. He gives himself. So it's something to look forward to, this pure devotional service. So any question or comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
So we have a question in YouTube from Dion Moodley devotee. He said, Hare Krishna, Vijaya Prabhu, how do we understand it when our devotional service changes? When we get a service that is not as stimulating and satisfying as the one that we felt complete satisfaction?
Oh, very interesting question. Well, sometimes we're in a situation that may be more difficult and maybe not as pleasing, but if we stick to that service, it may be more purifying. And initially it may not be so nice, but if we stick to it, we do the needful. Prabhupada said, a devotee does the needful. We may not want to do it, but maybe a higher authority wants us to do it, to do the needful. It may not be as pleasing, but our duty is to do what is most beneficial for ourselves and also for the society. Just like book distribution is not an easy service, and therefore there's not many people that distribute books. But we know that it's very pleasing to Krishna and it's purifying. So therefore some devotees, even though it's difficult, they continue doing the service and they get purified. So sometimes the service we're doing may not be as pleasing as something that we like to do, but it may be more beneficial, more pleasing to Krishna. Is that okay? Can you hear this?
He replied, "Thank you."
Okay. Thank you for a very good question.
There is one more question he asked. That is, he said, "Will Krishna give us a devotional service where we can apply ourselves fully and can best please Him?"
Well, Krishna, we're all individuals, so He gives us what will help us advance in spiritual life. And sometimes we can't always see Krishna's plan. Quite often we can't see Krishna's plan. Like we have our plan, and Krishna has his plan. Just like when I was in India earlier this year, and then we had this pandemic, and I mean, I'm a resident of the Los Angeles temple. I was there for 30 years. And when we got back, of course, I'm not a full-time devotee. I was never a full-time devotee in Los Angeles because I travel a lot. So I wasn't like anybody else at the LA temple. So when I returned from India, Savasarabhu, the temple president, he said he only wants full-time devotees there at the temple. I'm not a full-time devotee, so I went up to Ojai for some time. And it was very disturbing. I lived in LA, so I was there for so long. So I went to Ojai, and then that's because the devotee that had a house up there, he wasn't there. He was stuck in India also. But then he returned from India. So he wanted his house back. So it wasn't that big a house. So then now where am I going to go? So I called SanDiego, and they welcomed me down here, open arms. So I thought, all right, Krishna's arrangement. Open arms at a distance, 6 feet. So, but now I'm happily situated here. I had no plan to come here. It's Krishna's plan. So we don't know what. So we don't know what Krishna's plan is going to be. But Krishna's plan is always best. Surrender to Krishna's plan. And of course, sometimes we're under an authority. Sometimes it happens that someone's under an authority and he tells us to do something, but then it turns out that he's not actually following the process or something. So then what do? So then we go to another authority, go to a higher authority. So sometimes that happens. But yeah, we have to depend on Krishna, and Krishna will help us. Yeah. I think Dravida has something to say.
Yeah, it's interesting on that subject you've been talking about. You began the class, and I know you like this phrase because I've heard you chant it before. Matchita Savadurgani Matprasada Tarishasi. This is right near the end of Krishna's instructions in the 18th chapter, and he's saying here, if you become conscious of me, because actually the question is very pertinent to the whole Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna was fighting, against his service, his actual service, and he was thinking that, if I perform this service, I'll be very unhappy. I'll kill my friends, relatives, like that, So, but previous to that time, he was engaging in so much wonderful service with Krishna. He was very blissful. So something happened. It changed. Krishna wanted him to fight, but he thought that would make him unhappy if he fought. So he separated his own desires from Krishna's desires, is what's going on. And bringing it back in tune is what the Gita is all about. So here Krishna's kind of summing it all up. If you become conscious of me, you will cross over all the
obstacles.
Yeah, by my mercy. But if you listen to your false ego, atacheta mahankaram, and that therefore don't hear me, you'll be lost. It's a very important verse, because it's the false ego that's trying to tell you, I was happy doing the service. Now they want me to do something else, and I'm not going to be happy doing that service. But actually, if you think of the principle that our happiness should be wholly and solely dependent on the happiness of our Guru and Krishna, and assuming the Guru is giving Krishna desires, then bringing ourselves in tune with that desire, assuming that everything else is in order, not we'll be giving bogus instructions, then that will be a real point of advancement for us. I mean, you think of Prabhupada's own life as he depicted it, how first he resisted taking sannyas. He thought it would be horrible. He was still preaching. He was doing so many things. But his spiritual master kept encouraging him. He finally, took it. And then the idea of coming to America, of leaving Vrindavan in his old age and doing it seemed impossible. He had so many prayers, But he, being the heroic devotee he was, he took it up, and he became completely successful. So we're often faced by these dilemmas in our service. We're situated in a certain service, and then things change, and we're asked to do a different service. It's completely bona fide, but we're thinking, I'm so happy in the service. But our happiness in the service should be in tune with the desire of Krishna. And if it's expressed, then we should surrender to it. Then you find yourself much more secure in your devotional service.
Yeah, Arjuna, he was so upset. He said, I'm just going to become a beggar. So he did not want to fight. I mean, can you imagine? Bhishma, that's his grandfather. Everybody, all the Pandit, they loved Bhishma so much. Everybody loved Bhishma. And now he's being asked to kill him. I was just listening to a class Prabhupada yesterday. Prabhupada said, he was speaking about this, how Arjuna is being asked to kill Bhishma. And imagine that, he said to his disciple, imagine if you were ordered to kill me. Prabhupada said like that. I mean, you couldn't do it because you have so much love for me. So the love that they had for Bhishma is like the love you have for me. So that gives you an idea of how difficult that instruction was that Krishna's giving to Arjuna. But then Krishna spoke to Bhagavad Gita. He said, all right, I'm going to do it. And he shot arrows at Bhishma. Yeah, it's inconceivable. He had so much love. Yeah. So sometimes it's very difficult to do something, but if it's pleasing to Krishna, then you'll be happy by that. And Arjuna, he surrendered, and he became, of course, he's a pure devotee. He became very happy by surrendering to Krishna's instructions. and they, of course, they won the war, and they went on to lead a wonderful society, Krishna consciousness. So sometimes the desire of Krishna is very difficult, to follow, but it's for our benefit. Did you have something you wanted to say? Oh. Yeah, Javita Prabhu. Again.
You also spoke about the austerities of the speech.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, but pleasing talking, speaking the truth, and beneficial words, so forth.
Yeah.
And I always like to remember that, because the other austerity, the other things are given. This is food in the mode of passion. This is food in the mode of good, in the very verse. These three verses describe austerities of the mind, the speech, and the body. But then the fourth verse gives, and these, when engaged in, without any material desire, apalakankshi beer, they're in the mode of goodness. So I was thinking that speech, the austerity speech can also be engaged in with material desire. The skillful hucksters and the in other words, it's possible to speak very soothingly and very pleasingly. This is the whole art of advertising. But the motive is...
There's a lot of bogus yogis out there speaking.
Exactly. and the motive is to exploit the person. So this is a very important caveat. These austerities, mind, body, and speech, are in the mode of goodness, especially, and criteria when they're apalakankshi beer. There's no material desire, and your purpose is for service to Krishna.
Yeah, so to just be truthful, that's mode of goodness.
Yeah.
So to anudrayam karna, satyam priyam, to speak that which is pleasing, satyam priyam hitam, to speak that which is beneficial, and then to also repeat the Vedic literature. This is just the mode of goodness. Yeah. So we got to go above the mode of goodness to pure goodness.
And there's no material desire. That means the desire is for Krishna.
No desire other than to please Krishna. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Prabhu, there is one more question.
All right.
First of all, Dion Mudle Prabhu said, "Thank you, Dabira Prabhu, useful and encouraging feedback." And he said to you, "Thank you, Prabhu, great class always." And there is one more devotee. His name is Geoff Lippert. He said, "Haribol, does Krishna arrange service based on your degree of surrender? Is it scientific like that?"
Repeat the question.
Geoff Lippert Prabhu says, does Krishna arrange service based on your degree of surrender? Is it scientific like
Based on your degree of surrender, does Krishna give you service based on the degree of your surrender? Well, yes. Prabhupada, he said he chose his GBC men by seeing who took the most risk in preaching Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada recognized that, and he made GBC men on that basis. So yes, and I'm a very fallen soul, but the leaders also, they saw that I'm into book distribution. I like to distribute books. I like to inspire book distribution. So then they asked me to be the minister of book distribution, because they saw that I'm into it. Although I'm very fallen, very insignificant, but they saw that I'm into book distribution. I like to distribute books. I like to inspire book distribution. So then they gave me this position. So now I had to rise to for this service. So yeah. So Prabhupada said we should be very careful about the details of our service. Whatever it is we're doing, we should be very careful in the details. This is what Krishna, the details. This is what Krishna wants to see. So whatever it is we're doing, we should do it very nicely for Krishna. And then it becomes recognized. And then you're asked to do more service. naturally. So to the degree that we surrender to Krishna, we get other opportunities to please Krishna. Okay? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki